Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Second Cup of Coffee. Pastor Tom with you. We're on week 4 of our series, Then, T-H-E-N. Gone through 3 weeks. Last week was about Mary, and God will put you in then moments, but you have to choose to engage God in that. It's a great springboard because we have Corey Royce with us. He is Pastor Elver's nephew, and he's in town, and so he has a story, or not a story, testimony really, of something that happened with him and another person. God opened a door for him. He chose to step through it. And that's really what these conversations are about, Corey, because we want to hear from people that are doing it every day. There's a saying that I have, there's more out the door, right? A lot of people aren't going to come into the church, but we meet them every day, right? I say it like this. Some people are pushed to the margins by life for a lot of different reasons, but God puts us in those margins, and if we are open, we will see people to minister to. So I'm just going to leave that with you as far as like, if you can kind of just give us the background, what you do, how all of this started to come about, and then just kind of lead us through the testimony.
Yeah, sure. I'm a general contractor, and I constantly go to the lumber yard, and there's a high employee turnover there, mostly young kids, I would say. And so one day, I may go in there once, 2-3 times a day. And so there'd been this young man working at the store, probably in his early 20s or so, and completely different than me. I mean, we're talking the hipster with the baggy pants and tattoos everywhere, and
so people that don't know you, you're more like hunt, fish.
So I mean,
contractor. Just right.
So we come from 2 completely different worlds. This kid and me. I mean, grew up on a ranch, and just a redneck country boy, and hunt and fish, and build stuff, and so 2 unlikely people to probably have a conversation. An old guy that's me, and then this young hipster. And so anyways, but I would talk to this kid every time I went in there, like all the other employees. I think it's always important to acknowledge them, say hi, how's your day going, so on and so forth. But so this kid, he kind of warmed up to me, and he liked me, and so anyways, I could tell, and he'd worked there for months and months, and I could tell that something was going on with him. I came from a pretty rough background, and so I can kind of spot, dysfunctionalism and abuse and different things pretty easy. And so I knew something was going on with him, and then all of a sudden he wasn't working at the store anymore.
Oh, wow. And
so I knew something bad was going on with him. I didn't know what, but one day I went into the lumber yard, and he was coming out of the store, and his name's Cody. And I said, "Hey, Cody, hold up a second." And I was busy and all of that, but I'm like, man, I got to see what's up with him. So I said, "Hey, man, how you doing, Cody?" And he said, "Oh, I'm good. I'm good." And I said, "No, I don't think so." And I said, "What's really going on?" And he wouldn't talk about it, but I could tell. I mean, I could tell that he was in a bad point in his life, and he's skinny, and you could just, it didn't look good. You could just tell physically and mentally, spiritually, all of that, he was just not good. And so I don't know, I just felt led to talk to him, and the one thing that I said to him was, I said, "Look, Cody, I'm going to shoot it to you straight. I don't know your story. I don't know your pain, but I know who does. And I can promise you, if you surrender to Jesus, you go home, you go in your room, you go all by yourself, you go in the closet. I know it sounds silly, but just between you and God.
Wow.
You lay it all to him. Every single thing, Cody, you give it up. You give it all up to him. You lay it all out to him. You got to surrender to him, man. I promise you, you got to surrender." And I got back in my truck, and I left, and I thought, man, that was probably pretty harsh, I don't know. Maybe I was too forward, maybe I'm not,
Right. Hey, just give you grace. We all feel that way, like pastors. Even some of you preach a message, you're like, did I do it right? But anyway, go ahead.
So I just I didn't see Cody after that for a long time, and maybe 2 years or so, and I don't know what happened to him. And so my wife and I went out to dinner one night at a nice restaurant, which we don't do very often. I mean, a few times a year we go out. And so we're sitting there at the table, and I look across the room, and there's a group of people, and this guy's sitting over there, and he keeps staring at me. And I'm thinking, what's this guy's problem, man? Why does he keep eyeballing me, And so, the redneck, rough carpenter in me is like, man, what's this guy's problem? And so I got to think, I think that's Cody. But I didn't recognize him.
Oh, wow.
And so he gets up and he starts walking over, and I'm like, gosh, is that Cody? But he was big. I mean, he went from, let's say, 160 to 220.
Wow.
And his face is full.
Wow.
It's bright. It's, like I said, I don't recognize
right.
him. So,
yeah.
So he comes over, and I'm sitting there, and my wife is sitting there, and I said, Cody. And he saw, Corey. I'm like, hey, man. And he said, I had to come over here and talk to you. I said, yeah, what's up? And he said, I have to let you know that day in the lumber yard when you come in, and I'd pretty much forgotten about it,
Wow. Sure.
And he said, that day you came in the lumber yard and you pulled me aside and you told me that I need to surrender and I need to give it all to Jesus. Wow. He said, I did it.
Wow.
He said, I did it. And he said, a couple of days later, I went to rehab in Sacramento, maybe Rockland, but the Sacramento area. He said, I went to rehab, and he named the rehab center, and I can't think of the name now, but he said, I went to the rehab center, I went through the program, I got clean. He's like, now I lead this, and that.
Wow.
He said, I have a full-time job there, I'm in charge of this, and that. Now, I can't remember the specifics
For
now.
sure, yeah.
But
wow.
It was just amazing what he'd accomplished. But he said, Corey, ever since I surrendered, God has blessed me beyond my imagination.
Wow.
And everything. And he said, yeah, man, I even got some music on YouTube now, and all of this stuff. And, I'm this rough, tough carpenter or whatever. Dude, I just start tears running down my face. I look over at my wife, and she's like this, and she's just bawling. I'm like, oh my gosh, So I get up, I give him a big hug, and I couldn't talk. And he was all teared up, but it was amazing. And then, so it was, I don't know, maybe a year or so later, I'm on a big construction job and working with various crews. And one of the local guys, he'd been through years of drug abuse and had turned his life completely around. He was sober. He was trying his best to live right, not relapse. And he was talking to me about music. And this guy, Joe Nestor, that had the same story as Nick, and he showed me some lyrics. I was like, oh, this is incredible. And he's like, hey, Corey, do you ever remember that kid Cody that used to work at Four Seasons, the lumber yard? And I said, yeah, of course. And so he said, yeah, you gotta check him out. His music is amazing. His lyrics. I said, okay. And he looked at me, Nick looked at me, and he said, Corey, if you only knew his story, you can't imagine what he's been through and how good he's doing now. And right then, like, the hair on the back of my neck stood up and on my arms, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was the seed. Yeah. The seed was, listen, I don't know your story. I don't know your pain, but I know who does. Right. And like I said, I mean, the Holy Spirit just washed over me. You know, and I just knew, I got confirmation that, man, that was the seed. Right. So it was amazing, and and what a blessing for me, to just be able to be a little vessel for God, and to be able to make a difference, and just to say something so simple to somebody that God instilled in me to say, and then you see what spread, and I don't know, it's cool.
I love really that cool. It happened in the parking lot of the lumberyard, because I'm firmly convinced that the revival that we as Christians cry out for, if every one of us would just take those little moments, even in the time of our inconvenience, we wouldn't be able to we'd have our baptisms going all the time. It just changed lives. And sometimes, it says that some people sow, some people water, God brings the increase. You got to see the back end of that, which is awesome. We don't always get to see that, right? But I'm so grateful that God gave you that to see. And the reason is, guys, 1 Thessalonians 4, 16 through 18, if I can find it here, says, for the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout and with the voice of an archangel, with the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught together with him in the clouds and meet the Lord in the air, and thus we shall always be with the Lord. Therefore, comfort one another with these words. I end on that because we're all on the clock. Either we're already going to be gone, but if we're here, we're either going or we're staying, according to what First Thessalonians. And I'm not trying to get into a theological. Please don't email me, text me about your rapture. I'm not talking. God's coming. And it's clear. You're either going to go or you're going to stay.
Be on the winning team.
Right. You're on the clock, right? So two different ways. One is you need to be sharing your faith. But number two, that's probably the biggest thing as Christians. Share your faith because we're on the clock. The clock is winding down, right? And so what he did is what we need to do, but be on the clock. And it's always in your most inconvenient times. But may you hear that phrase from God. Are you on the clock? And when he says it, okay, God, what do you want to do? I'm a contractor. I only get paid when I finish my jobs. There's, it's my third time. I don't know how many times you've been on lumber time that day. Sure. I'm in a parking lot. This kid doesn't even want to talk to me. But here, I'm going to stop. I'm going to, not even knowing fully that you're sowing a seed that's going to produce fruit. So thank you for doing it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And look forward to doing it again and hearing more as God pours through your life. Guys, we're so grateful that you would find us. Like us on Facebook, YouTube, find us on our app. If this story meant something to you, share it with somebody else, because it may just encourage them to take time where they are to reach somebody that would not be reached any other way. We love you. God bless you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome.